to welcome one of our favorites, one of our own, actually. Nick Hagelin is here today, and he's going to be performing for us. He's also going to be doing the music for our commitment ceremony. Who doesn't love Nick? Everybody show him some appreciation.
Thank you. The time I love today, I wrote this song. It's called Hear Your Prayer, and I wrote it from the vantage point of God, Spirit. So don't quote me. But I believe reciprocated. Maybe you don't think you deserve it. Feel like you've been wasting your time. Maybe your whole life has been lightning flashing, storming through the night. Don't let yourself get caught in the moment. It gets a little better in time. Don't be afraid to close your eyes in the darkness, and I will be the light. What you're searching for is knocking at your door, safe in my embrace, never far away. My love is an ocean, as deep as your devotion. All your burdens I will bear, let my spirit fill the air. Faith is the fire, let it lift you higher. And when you feel like no one is there, I hear your prayer. No, I hear your prayer, yeah. Everything about you is perfect. Know that you're the apple of my eye. Got the kind of love you've been looking ever, a well that's never dry. And isn't it a wonderful feeling? Now is the perfect time. I got enough grace to fix your story. Just put your hand in mine. And what you're searching for is knocking at your door, safe in my embrace, never far away. My love is an ocean, as deep as your devotion. All your burdens I will bear, let my spirit fill the air. Faith is the fire, let it lift you higher. When you feel like no one is there, I hear your prayer. Yeah, hear your prayer, yeah. Everything about you is perfect. I know that you're the apple of my eye. Got the kind of love that'll last forever, a well that's never dry. Isn't it a wonderful feeling? Now is the perfect time. I got enough grace to fix your story. Just put your hand in mine. What you're searching for is knocking at your door, safe in my embrace, never far away. My love is an ocean, as deep as your devotion. All your burdens I will bear, let my spirit fill the air. Faith is the fire, let it lift you higher. When you feel like no one is there, I hear your prayer. Oh, I hear your prayer. Thank you.
Today's talk is called Prism of God's Love. It's the talk that's being presented worldwide in all of our centers. And I love the idea of that. I love what a prism is. If you've ever played with a piece of glass or a shiny piece of metal as a child, and you use that to refract light. In other words, you can take that particular element and you can cause it to take light and to bend it and direct it in a multitude of ways. I love the spiritual connotation of that because it's as if you and I are prisms of God's love. And that which is love, that God is love, God is not deity, God is love. It's the energy and life force in and of itself. And what it does is it has the opportunity to come in, and if we are flexible, if we are bendable, if we are the element by which we can then refract that and send it out in a multitude of directions, then we are on purpose. Then we are on purpose. Anytime that we find ourselves in some kind of conflict or some kind of anxiety or sense of separation, all of which is mental illusion, by the way. But if we find ourselves in that particular state of emotionality, then something is shrouding or covering the innate purity of our own inner prism. And isn't it maddening that that's no one else's fault? That as we embark upon this path of responsibility, we realize that at our very core is this purity. One of the most beautiful things that our founder, Ernest Holmes, ever said was, there is a place inside of you that has never been violated. Just think about that. It's very rare, I think, that we sit in the full consumption of that idea and own that. That in that purity, in that place that knows no violation, that place that only knows the connection and the full direct emanation of light, and that I am that beautiful crystal clear prism, that is my reality. But we so often don't sit in that and allow that to overtake us. Usually what we do is we either sit, stew, converse, or move about in this place of illusion and separation, in the forgetfulness. And of course, that then colors all of our relationships and all of our reactions to this three-dimensional earthly existence. And yet all along, faithfully, the purity of that prism is there. And so one of the charges that we've been given in this month of February is to see a world in which unity with God and connection with each other is not only emphasized but embodied. The unity of that which is source, the unity of that which is light, we are connected to that, and we emphasize that by the way in which we treat one another. And so as we take ownership of that and we call upon that, we can take something like this holiday, Valentine's Day, and we can celebrate it or we can be bitter about it. You know, what I love about circumstance is circumstance either gives us the tools to make things better through our own consciousness, or allows us to create things to be bitter. So we're either getting bitter or we're either getting better, based upon our level of awareness. And you know, and we always hear, we hear at all kinds of different holidays of how commercialized things are, and that's true. But you know what? Commercialization has no overlay or no energy over the purity of love. And so I can celebrate a day like today, regardless of if I'm in relationship or not. And there have been many Valentine's days where I was not in relationship. And as I look at that, I can say, as I celebrate and allow other people to honor the physical, intimate love that we celebrate, I can also honor the intimate agape love, which is the love of spirit and the love of God, or the love of that light within me. And I can take both of those kinds of unions and I can align myself with that. You know, the things that we are willing to celebrate for one another are the things that eventually perk up within us in order for us to have the individualization of the experience of celebration. If I'm constantly condemning or judging another person because of what I don't have, then guess what? I continue to have more of what I don't have. And so we're always in check, aren't we? We're always being able to look at that and to see how it is that we view these of things. And so Valentine's in and of itself is a wonderful, beautiful holiday. There are multiple myths with regards to its origin. I didn't know if you know, but there was more than one Valentinius saint. There were a couple of Valentinius saints, all of them martyrs, all of them. And so when we look at this day, this holy day, actually, then it's an opportunity for us to have a reset with regards to our own relationship with it. I've always loved the day better than Christmas. I don't know why, but as I look at the origin of my feelings around that, I have to go back to elementary school. Maybe you had this experience, but in my elementary school in Beaumont, Texas, from grades 1 through 5, in every class grade, we would have a Valentine's Day celebration. And what you would typically do is we would get construction paper, and we would have to make our own Valentine folders. So you would staple the sides, and you would take glue and glitter and put your names on them. And then that was your folder. Then your folder went up on the back wall of your classroom in the seating order of how you sat. And then in the few days leading up to whenever the party was going to be, all of your classmates came and played postman. And they put your Valentines in the respective folders so that by the time the party day came, your folder was kind of fat and sassy with all kinds of stuff sitting in there waiting to be read. And I loved that. I looked so forward to that. And wind got it that in 5th grade, someone said to me, you know, they don't do this in junior high school. And so I was already starting to mourn the loss of that experience. So much so that I didn't even want to go to junior high school. I just wanted to remain in 5th grade. And wouldn't you know, in 5th grade, on the day of our Valentine's celebration, I got sick. And I had, fever and nausea and vomiting. And so I got sent to the nurse's office. And the nurse looked at me, and she tried to get a hold of my mom, who was at work, and they were going to send me home. And I went, send me home? On Valentine's? Are you kidding me? And I faked my wellness. We all have faked our illness, right? When was the last time that you faked your wellness? That just shows you how much this day meant to me. I mean, I navigated my nausea to hold off till lunchtime. When she had put the thermometer in my mouth and she turned her head, I took it out, shook it, and I put it back in real quick and gave it to her. I did everything that I could think of to not be sent home, and it worked. And it worked. And I thought, why was I so attached to that particular thing? You know, we got a little bag of Red Hots. We got red Kool-Aid, and we got those little tiny things of ice cream that were in those little paper cups. They had the little pull tab, and they had a little wooden spoon. That meant everything to me. And I wasn't about to miss that. And when I was thinking about that memory and why that was so special and why I would go to such lengths to stay there to not miss it, I believe it was because in that small pocket of time, opening up their folder and reading their envelopes, there was a universal kindness in that room. No student was left out. Not the ones who, had snotty noses all the time, or not the unpopular kids. Everybody got an equal share of Valentine's. And you had a moment where you just got to sit and read the greetings from your classmates. And there was a universal kinship. There was a kindness there that I don't know if I ever felt the rest of the year. I certainly didn't feel it in my home environment. And that was why I was so desperately wanting to not miss that. I think that speaks volumes for who we are as a species, that we are so hungry for pockets of kindness. Purity, there is a prism of God's love that is emanating itself out, and for whatever reason we are receptive to it, or for whatever reason we are the instigator of it. So whether we're either giving or so much so that we wouldn't dare miss it. Now I know that that's true and was true for me as a child, But I often wonder how you and I get exposed to that in this thing called adulthood. In this thing where our muscles of cynicism have been so built up that it's very rare that we allow that level of committed vulnerability to be exposed so brilliantly. So much so that we wouldn't dare miss something, that we would fake our wellness in order to be there. But I've become convinced that the more that we open ourselves up to kindness, the more that we open ourselves up to the responsibility of being that channel or being that instrument or being that prism, if you will, of God's love, the more that we consider that, the more that those types of events occur. I'm even more convinced that those things and those opportunities are daily. Often we hold these kinds of things at special occasion, as we've often talked about. But if it's all God consistently 24/7, then doesn't it stand to reason that that time period or that exchange or that vibration of kindness is sitting and waiting? Look at the imagery of it. Sitting and waiting. A poet once said that the whole of the universe is standing on tiptoe. I always used to look at that and think about that. What did that look like? The whole universe is going, yes, I'm waiting. I'm waiting for your recognition. I'm waiting for your cooperation. I'm waiting for you to take ownership of that prism of God's love within you so that I can refract that light right back at you and you can experience that kinship. You can experience that kindness. You can experience that wellness. You can experience that prosperity. It's waiting. The beauty about that is it reminds us that things are not futurized. That the good that we pray for and that we long for, the wanting that lingers within the heart of creation, the pure heart within us, is telling us that the thing that we're longing for is already in existence. You and I are having to groom ourselves to have the direct consciousness in order to be in alignment with it. Think about that. The thing that you crave and want with regards to your perfect outlet for your creative expression has always been in existence. But you and I are not a match to that. We hear that all the time. We're not a match to that until we accept that and cooperate with that. It's sort of like universalmatch.com, spiritualmatch.com. You know, we go on and everything that we're saying that we're wanting is already there. It hasn't lied about its statistics or its age or its capabilities. It's pure. It's not an old photo from 25 years ago. It's perfect, right? Spiritualmatch.com is waiting for us, actually, to come into alignment with it. And so to become in alignment with that very thing means that we have to be the one to look at the equation between being reactionary or being responsive. And to be responsive means to operate in consciousness. And so every single day, we are looking at how do I be more of a conscientious responder rather than an unconscious reactor. I love when I get it. I love when I get it. I don't even know if I can describe it. Sometimes when you try to describe a moment, putting words to it diminishes the moment. But I had a moment this week where I got it. It's an exchange between another person looking in the eyes that was one of the most priceless, beautiful moments I've ever experienced in my life. Thursday, I was so honored and so privileged. I traveled to Tampa, Florida, because I was told that I was the recipient of a Lifetime Achievement Award for 30 years of my music in its contribution to the world of New Thought. 30 years. 30 years. I went, I'm only 31. This is crazy. How can that be? And it was one of those things that you think about, you think, God, I will never have that experience until after I'm dead. But there was like these videos that people made from all over the globe that they showed, and they were hysterically funny. I even missed a lot of it because people were the auditorium was laughing so hard. Even our choir, our SLCA choir, filmed a snippet as a congratulation. And my colleagues that I had worked with for decades all came, and they were singing my repertoire, like hundreds of songs that I had created. And they took several of them and they created these melodies, and it was just hurt from smiling so hugely. And when it came time to call me up on stage to accept my award, it was by the Foundation of Unity Ministries worldwide. It was a worldwide organization, and the board, the executive board of that particular organization, all came onto the stage. And the man who was holding the award is somebody who has been affiliated with that organization for decades. And he has been experiencing the challenges of Parkinson's disease. And he really wanted to give me this award. He had traveled there in order to be able to participate in the ceremony. And before he walked out on stage, he dropped the award, and it broke. And he was so mortified. And in his trembling hands, he tried to together so that no one would see. And he leaned over and he whispered to me, "I broke it. I'm so sorry." He goes, and this is like in a fraction of a second, he goes, "I'll send you a new one." And I held his hand, and he gave this to me. And as I was holding his hand and I was holding this, I said, "Don't worry about it. This is great. This is great." And we looked at each other. And for a half a second, you could see this wave of relief just flood him. When you are the prism of God's love, there is a wave of relief from the other person who is the recipient of the refraction of that light. When a collective of individuals are the recipient of the refraction of your light. Because when I took this like this and I gave my speech and I'm holding it like there's no problem, see? I thought, what is so incredible about this is it explains the difference between being broken and being broken open. And all of us are broken in some degree. But broken is either a destination or it's a stopping point. Or it's a destination or it's a stopping point or it's just a stop along the way. Because who among us wants to literally, consciously stay in the place of being broken? But when you allow that stopping point to be a teacher and then move you to a place of being broken open, then you and I can take every single thing that has ever happened to us in our life with regards to love or not being loved, seen or not being seen, heard or not being heard, being abandoned or not being abandoned, being left out, whatever the story is that's universal for everybody in here. You can take those things and not be defined by them, but allow the prism of that which is God love to refract that in such a way that you can take your own particularized experience of that and move into a place of being broken open so that, like the poet Rumi says, that's where the light gets in. I would much rather sit in the presence of someone who's been broken open and who owns that and who uses that in order to help heal the planet, rather than sitting in the energy of someone who's just broken and that's all that they know and that's all that they accept about the truth of who they are. And so when he said, "I'm going to send you another one," I said, "No, don't. I want this one. I want this one. Yeah, I'll try to super glue it. But there's a chunk of it that's missing. That's somewhere backstage at the Tampa Hilton. And that's okay. I want to leave the chunk out. because what I love is all of the chunks that are out of us is where the light gets in. And to me, that's the beauty of being a prism of God's love, is we're not trying to run away from something, but we're learning to embrace all things. I don't want to deny any part of my heritage. I want to be able to use my heritage, but not from a place of stagnation, but from a place of love. And so our founder, Ernest Holmes, reminded us in The Science of Mind, he says, it is a law that the man who sees what he wants to see, regardless of what appears, will someday experience in the outer what he has so faithfully seen in the within. Let me read that again. It is a law that the man who sees what he wants to see, regardless of what appears, will someday experience in the outer what he has so faithfully seen in the within. And I think we all intellectualize that and agree and nod our heads, but what bothers us sometimes is the word someday. Because we want that relief now. We want to migrate from the broken to the broken open right now. The truth is that the someday is here and now. The thing that we desire and seek is here right now. But our migration or our individualized process to get there is also of great value. There are things within this curriculum of life, there are things that I need to learn to shed. There is the value of learning what it means to hold on to something so tightly, so tight-knuckled that my fingernails are piercing and causing blood in my hand, but I'm refusing because this is what I know. There's value in finger by finger unfurling rather than always sometimes just instantaneously doing that. There's value in that. What I get is the more that I honor the value, the swifter my hands open. What I get is the more that I value every single thing and say, no, okay, I'm glad that it took as long as it took. I'm glad that that journey went this way and that way. I'm glad that it took X number of years in order for me to get the lesson. I'm glad because my roots in the soil of my knowing are deeper now. They're not shallow. I have substantiated evidence that tells me, that supports my knowing in the fact that eventually I do get to this. And the beauty then of consciousness and the beauty of our self-awareness is that process lessens, the duration of it lessens, and I'm able to open my hands quicker. And what I know is in order for me to be able to receive something, I cannot enter life into life like this. We see a world right now that's what? Like this. We like to think that our world and its chaos has never seen any other chaos in the history of all humankind, which is ludicrous. And so it tells an experience is this. This is the broken. And so I ask you today, to what degree are you this? And to what degree are you this? This is the broken. Realizing that we cannot receive the gifts, the infinite amount of gifts that are available, unless we open and relinquish and let go of what was or what we think is our righteous indignation. He says, it is a law that man who sees what he wants to see, regardless of what appears, will someday experience in the outer what he has so faithfully seen in the within. He says, too, Ernest Holmes, through the prism of God's love, I recognize the oneness of God and man. And he tells us, you need to think of the whole world as your friend. Emphasis being whole world, as your friend. But you must also be a friend to the whole world. It's that very thing of, if I want friends, then I must be a friend. If I want more love in my life, then I must be greater degrees of love. That's the way it works. I love the Buddhist sensibility, particularly in their work ethic, that if they desire something creatively for themselves, then what they do is they go and help another person achieve what it is that they want, realizing that through the law of exchange, that by the very act of them supporting another being, that they are already being given the gift of what it is that they desire. There is no competition with that. There is no ludicrousness in that, in thinking that somebody has the power to be able to take something away from me. And so in understanding that, I came upon this amazing quote by a biologist and a humanist named Lewis Thomas. And he said, "The drive to be useful is encoded in our genes." The drive to be useful is encoded in our genes. But when we gather in a very large number, as in the modern nation state, we seem capable of levels of folly and self-destruction to be found nowhere else in all of nature. Oh, did you hear that? Let me say it again. The drive to be useful is encoded in our genes. But when we gather in very large numbers, as in the modern nation state, we seem capable of levels of folly and self-destruction to be found nowhere else in all of nature. Reminding us of the genius of nature, that nature knows no such thing as competition. You don't see one tree saying, "I'm not voting for that tree." You don't see one flower saying, "I'm sorry, but I will not allow my buds to engage with your buds." Nature knows nothing of that kind of folly. And we are encoded with the same genius as that of nature. So where in the world did we begin to learn and engage in the folly that is so prevalent in our society? Is there a remedy for that? Obviously, the remedy is there because it exists within us, because it is our inherent nature. And so Lewis Thomas concludes by saying, but if we keep at it and keep alive, I like the caveat of that, if you stay alive while you're at this, if we keep alive, we are in for one surprise after another. We can build structures for human before, thoughts never, music never heard before. And that is the clarion call of every sentient being. That is the clarion call of you and I as light beings, as light changers, as people who are willing to dress up and show up time and again, to come in an environment like this, to expose yourself to some kind of philosophical pull that is saying, come on. As Michael Beckwith, the teacher in LA, so beautifully says, pain pushes till vision pulls. Pain pushes till vision pulls. Pain, being the part that's broken, keeps pushing until the broken open pulls you and says, this is not your destination. This is just a stop along the way. And either you keep going and you understand what your soul is committed to, or you begin to stagnate and wither and you become a part of the energetic folly that misses out on the abundance of life. And so on this universal day of love, it behooves us to see, where are we stagnant and where are we broken in regards to something very old, something stale, some energy, some conflict with another individual that still, whether we think it's there or not, is still very much percolating inside the DNA of our being. And so I want to give this an opportunity today, a practical application for you to simply close your eyes this morning. And I want you to think about the broad spectrum of your relationships. And the pops up, the very first one that feels any kind of restriction or conflict. I want you to focus on that. Focus on that individual. And then I want to remind you that you are a prism that refracts light. You are an instrument. You are a vessel. You are a conduit of light that knows no limitation, that knows nothing of separation. And so I just want you to see yourself as that prism refracting that light to that individual. You don't have to say anything. You just have to be willing to stand in proxy, to be that energy. Imagine that light just emanating from your core and seeing it bathe that individual. Entertain the idea that on their face is a sense of relief. Just like that man on the stage handing me that award. You're essentially telling them it's okay. It's okay. And as you become willing to be the conduit of that, then I want you to hear me this morning when I tell you that you are also the receiver of that same kind of restorative energy. We celebrate that today. And we know that just something as simple is available to us constantly. Being that mover and that shaker and that light-changing individual, we say yes to that practice. And we say yes to the ownership of that. And we delight in the fact that stagnation is not our destination. And that today we continue to move on. We allow the vision to pull us into a greater reality of our truth. If you are in agreement and in harmony with this idea, I just ask that you breathe in today. And sincerely and beautifully say with me together, and so it is. Hi, I'm David Ault, and I simply want to say thanks. Thanks for taking the time to watch our broadcast here at Spiritual Living Center of Atlanta. We have a vision, and that vision is to reawaken all to their spiritual magnificence. And one of the ways that we are able to do that is through this very medium of broadcasting. So if you got anything out of this, if you felt in any way inspired, or if something spoke to you directly, then I extend an invitation to you to become a part of our family by donating. And there are many ways in order for you to be able to do that. One is to simply go to our website at slca.com, and there you will find all different kinds of prompts that will help you support what it is that we are doing here in Atlanta. One way is to become a pledger. That means that you decide on a monthly basis that you are going to help us with this vision. Another way is to donate through our management system called Fellowship One, another through PayPal, and another even easier way is on your cell phone. You can do what's called text to tithe, and that number is 404-796-7030. Again, thank you so much for your support, and I invite you to come back weekly to see what it is that we're up to. Blessings.